Brightest Blessings, this is Raven and welcome back to my channel for the first video of 2024. I have had a rather long break, and as a lot of you know, I do suffer with fibromyalgia and I've had a lot of stuff going on in my life that has meant I've needed to take a break. So I took a really good break over Christmas and spent time with the children and sorted all my craft area out, and I've started fresh for the new year. I have some exciting news in regards to the craft side of my channel. I am part of the Natty and Moon design team, so I will be featuring a lot of her work, and we'll be doing collabs and things where I mix some of her work with my work. And yeah, all very, very exciting. But while I've been off, I have still been doing crafty things, and I've also been working on this new Book of Shadows. So some of you will know that I had a smaller Apothecary book that I kept on my altar. It wasn't fit for purpose anymore. It wasn't big enough. And yeah, I needed to transfer everything. So that's what I've done, plus added more that I've collected over the last couple of years and just hadn't added to that one. As usual, I've gone for a B5 bullet journal. It's supposed to have 300 pages, but when I'm using a journal in the way that I do, I tend to take a lot of pages out so that then I can add flips and things as I go. So you can see it's not massive, but there is room for it to add. And I like these because it has the elastic on, so it's nice and easy to use. And I've just plainly decorated the inside, and we're straight on to herbs. Everything in this book I have used. It doesn't mean I have them with me all the time on my Apothecary shelves, but I have used them, and there is the potential that I may use them again, so it gets added into here. I'm not going to discuss through each of the herbs because we would be here for hours and hours and hours. But I am going to leave it open on each page for a significant amount of time so that you can pause the video and screenshot and read or copy down whatever you want to copy. Pretty much all of this information can be found online. Some of it is my own uses or beliefs. And as I said, the rest of it is stuff that you can find online or in books. The way that I set my books up is to be able to add more to it if I need to in the future. So for example, I'd done Older there and Allspice there, and then when I was going through my other book, which wasn't in alphabetical order, I'd totally forgotten about alfalfa, so I decided to put it in here. And although it's not technically in alphabetical order, it's all the A's together, all the B's together, if you get my meaning. So I try, to add pages in different places, and I always try and leave a gap one side of the page or the other so that I can add more to it if I need to. All of the artwork in here is from various Etsy sellers, or it's my own. If you're really, really interested in who they are, let me know and I will post their links. And pretty much all of this is from journal kits. So there's obviously an Apothecary journal kit that I've purchased in the past and had it there. And I didn't want to use it to make another Apothecary junk journal at the moment. So I decided it would be nice to add into here. So it goes to show that if you buy digitals and things from Etsy, they don't just have to be used for the purpose that they're sent in. This one, for example, and that one, it's part of a folio that you can make, but actually the size of the page is quite nice to be able to add it in. The same as this one. This was a flip out inside the folio. So you don't have to use them as they are. Be inventive. A lot of it I've printed onto sticker paper so that it's easy for me to add. This was part of the folio as well, so it would flip up, and it was just a different way of using up the bits that I had, because as I said, I did have a big sort out of my craft room. I ended up with more space than what I was used to, so I've gone through every single one now, every drawer, every cupboard, every shelf, and sorted all of that out so that I could start 2024 afresh. And this has kept me relatively busy. As a lot of you know, I like to sit on an evening and write in my journals or books of shadows. It helps me to stay grounded and stay connected to my craft. And it's just one of my coping mechanisms in life, is to be able to just sit and block out the world and just concentrate on getting information down. Pretty much all of this is quite self-explanatory. The majority of them are broken up into medicinal uses and magical uses. Some of them don't have medicinal uses, but they will all have a magical use, because obviously this is specifically for my witchcraft practice. But there are times when I will use things for medicinal purposes as well. Some pages will have extra information, such as history and folklore. If I've found information that I find interesting or something that I need to know. So like here, history and folklore, I've added a little bit about that because I find it interesting or think that it needs to be appreciated while I'm using said herb. And this one, as you can see, is pretty similar to previous books that I've shown you. I am also, now that this one is pretty much finished, moving on to moving everything from my sorry guys, everything from my big giant grimoire over to the bullet journals, because they're a much easier size for me to use, and I'm just going to do those as topics the same way that I've done all the others. So for example, the one that I've started is for the Wheel of the Year and the Sabbats. I'm about 6 or 7 pages into that one already that I've done in the last couple of days, so it's not going to take me long to move everything over. I will, of course, still be using my big grimoire. I'll still have it, but when it comes to actually using the information inside it for magical purposes, it's much easier to have this on a table than it is my giant huge binder. So that will be in an upcoming video soon. I'm also still doing the Dark Deity grimoire that was a few videos back. That's one that's going to take time because some of the deities that I'm putting in there I haven't worked with yet but intend to, so I'm not going to fill that in until I have. But once it's finished, hopefully by the end of this year, you'll get a video for that as well. So I hope that you can see, if you want to pause the video, that the information is quite readily available from the internet and things, or books if you get any herbal books from like the Works here in the UK. There is no reason why you can't just copy and paste from those books into your own book if you agree with the information. You know, a lot of the information that I have in here is pretty much copied and pasted from books or from the internet, provided I have used that herb and agree with its use. I wouldn't suggest you just going and copying a book from, you know, cover to cover if you don't even know what any of it inside is. You need to use it first. And there will be herbs and other things in this book that you may not agree with me using or how I use them. Again, magical practices differ from person to person, and what I do doesn't necessarily make it right for you, and what you do doesn't necessarily make it right for me. This is just basic information, and as I said, if it's in here, I've used it, or I know I'm about to use it. All of the herbs, 100%, I have used. Some I have a lot of, like mandrake I have some of. I have milk thistle and magnolia, but I don't have any marshmallow. So if it's something that I haven't got currently on my apothecary shelf, it's generally things that I can get that are, you know, pretty easily, depending on the time of year. It just means that it's not just sat there. So mugwort's another one that I have pretty much all the time. I use it a lot for my work with Hecate and various other things. Mugwort helps me sleep. So yeah, there's lots of reasons why I wouldn't necessarily have each of these herbs in my apothecary at all times. A lot of things will go off or lose their magical ability the longer it's sat there, depending on what it is. Some things you need to use fresh. So that's another thing to always check. If you're going to go out and purchase herbs or collect herbs, make sure of its use. Are you supposed to use it dried? Are you supposed to use it fresh? How long will it last? Because things over time will naturally lose their power. So it's pointless you having a massive jar full of nettles and not using them for 10 years. It's not going to work, is it? So things that you don't use very often, I wouldn't suggest keeping on your altar or on your apothecary shelves. And as a lot of you know, when it comes to my grimoires and things and my journals, I like to have lots of decoration in them. It helps me to retain the information. It's also pleasing to the eye. I think it looks much nicer than just plain black and white writing. For me personally, there are other books that I have made that are just plain writing, but I find it more fun to have stickers and things in. It just makes it look more finished to me. As you can see, not every page has a flip on, so I've got plenty of space to add more to it, although this is a pretty long list of magical herbs. There probably aren't very many that I don't have in here, because at some point over the last 20 years of me doing my witchcraft, I have used it at some point and made notes. So I can't think of any that I haven't got in here that I haven't used. Even herbs that I've used that haven't necessarily worked in the way that I would have liked them to, they're still in here. The ins and outs of what I've used it for at the time is in a completely different book. Sorry, excuse me. I have a diary, a bullet journal style diary, where any spell work or ritual I do, I'll write it up. Not necessarily the whole spell or the whole ritual if it's one that I've already got in here, but I'll list what spell I've used, what herbs and crystals and candles and everything else that I've used, and you know, what's happened about that spell or that ritual. Did my spell work? If it didn't, why not? If it did work, how did it work? That's all in a separate book that I don't show anybody, because that's my personal work, whereas this is all just information and a little bit of my own personal information about, you know, how I use it. And this is probably the easiest thing for you to do if you're just starting out in witchcraft, is to pick a topic such as herbs or crystals or candles even, or gods and goddesses, and make a book solely about those for you to start learning about. And you can see I've kept the same theme all the way through. Some pages are slightly different. A lot of the artwork is the same on most pages. It's just that I've spread it through the book so that it's not the same on every page. And you can see the difference between some herbs that have a lot of information and some that don't. So yarrow has an awful lot of medicinal associations, but also has quite a lot of magical information and folklore. So some have 2 pages, some have more than 2 pages, whereas others only have the 1. Oh dear, excuse me, guys. So this at the end is other apothecary items. So things that aren't necessarily herbs, but if I'm going to use them, they would be on my apothecary shelf, such as dragon's blood resin. I always have dragon's blood resin. Not every resin that I would like to use is in here yet, but that's why I've left spaces and gaps to add things in. Snakeskin, I've said before, I use quite regularly and have on my apothecary shelves. Epsom salts and charcoal. This is one of the issues that a lot of people have when it comes to witchcraft, is saying that things like bodily fluids and hair and nails and teeth are all used for dark magic, which is right, yes they are, but they're not always used for that. So please don't judge on the content of my book and assume that I only work with darker energies, because that isn't the case. My practice is about balance. And to be balanced, you have to be able to work with both. So if I have worked with something, I've worked with all of these in one form or another. It's in here. Obviously, these aren't things that you would keep in a jar forever, unless it's for a particular spell. So if you were going to do a witch bottle, which is, you know, sort of a hexing, cursing style spell, you may well have a jar with urine in, because that's part of the spell, and you keep that spell for as long as you need to. But it's not like on my apothecary shelves I've got jars of menstrual blood and urine. That's not the case. It's a case of sorting those things out at the time. Hair and nails, generally this isn't something that I do very often. It's more to do with protection spells, if anything else, for me personally. So for example, I have quite a lot of my own hair and my daughter's hair from when she was very young, and if I feel I need extra protection, I will make a spell using my own hair or my own nails. Teeth is another one. We all have that tradition of keeping our baby teeth. Those baby teeth can be used in spells. There is a short list here of what they can be used for, and not all of it is negative or darker magic. Animal bones. Again, it's all to do with intention. Moon water I always have on my altar at all times for the various different moons that I've collected them from, and then at the end of the lunar year I will get rid of anything that's left and wash them and restart for the year. Other types of magical water, some of these I have, such as seawater and river water, but I don't have any of the others at the moment. These are quite easy for you to pick up, but again, I would only keep them for a shorter amount of time. So generally, I try and keep water for about 12 months, provided it's not being ingested, because water can go stagnant, obviously. Otherwise, I just grab it when I need it. Graveyard dirt and other dirt is on my apothecary shelves. Sand from various different places is on my apothecary shelves. Binding chalk I make myself. There's a little thing here about how to, what you need to make it. That's on my apothecary shelf. Different waxes. I have a lot of wax pellets. as well as spare candles and things. So it's always good to have those, because at the end of the day, you don't need to have all the herbs to do a money spell. You can just use a green candle. It depends on your intent and how strong that intent is. Honey, I always have in the house anyway. It's not necessarily on my apothecary shelf, but it is something that I always have in the house. Here we have vinegar and peppercorn, and the only reason peppercorn is here and not with the pea is because I don't class it as a herb. And then this at the end isn't filled in, spider malts. So the reason that I haven't filled the spider malts page in is because I haven't got them yet. I'm going to see my lovely, lovely friend Liam soon, and he breeds spiders and has spider malts for me. So once I've used those in my practice, I will put the information in. I've saved a page, 2 pages, so that I can add that information. So it's not going to be long before I can start filling this in. So thank you, Liam. It will be useful to have that in here. And that's the end of this grimoire. But you can see there is still a lot of room to add into here. And it's not going to become so bulky that I can't use it. The only thing with this particular one is that the spine has warped a little bit. So it's not perfect, but I love it. Absolutely love it. And I love the green colour. So that's that for today, guys. I hope you're all really well. I have really, really missed filming for you and chatting to you guys. I am still on Facebook, so if you want to get in touch, just send me a message on there. The link will be below. I'm also still on Etsy, so if you want to go along and check out my Etsy shop, you are more than welcome. There is a sale on at the moment for 35% off, I believe. So yeah, that's that for today, guys. I hope you're all really well, and I will see you in the next video. Blessings.